Dr. Sharma, I think this conversation about the sort of usefulness or the place for the non-rational in daily life, for anyone's life, is really important. And I think sometimes, when we look at a work of art or listen to music, we're sort of getting meaning. We can't put our finger on necessarily. It's maybe a little more mysterious, the meaning that we kind of get from that. But I think everyone can feel that when they're sort of, just listening to their favorite song. And so I wanted to ask you about what the relationship is, though, between the non-rational and the irrational. And you had set up the sort of tripartite rationality, irrationality, but then the non-rational as well. So I was wondering, what is that? What distinguishes the non-rational from the flat-out irrational?
We have a general problem there, It is easier to distinguish between the rational and the irrational. The problem is that in doing that, we often conflate the irrational with the non-rational. And therefore it becomes very important to be able to decide between the irrational and the non-rational. I think the life and thought of Mahatma Gandhi offers us very interesting clues for addressing this issue. It's a very important issue, and I don't think it has been addressed as such adequately, and it is a very difficult issue. The way it surfaces in Mahatma Gandhi is that he used to claim that he heard the voice of God. Sometimes he would refer to it as his inner voice. And he even writes somewhere that this is not an outrageous claim on my part, and prophets in history have always done that, claim to have heard the voice of God. But when he was asked, how do we know that it is just not your whim, masquerading as the voice of God? He said there is no real way of knowing that except by its results. Now you will see why we were giving examples of art and literature and music and moral life. All the examples we were giving were positive. That kind of activity which we experienced in the non-rational sphere had positive outcomes for us. So this ties back into Gandhi's view that by its fruits shall ye know it, which is of course a biblical utterance. But he embraced it. He did offer a very interesting comment which might help us say something more, in the sense that now we have one check. We do not know in advance, we cannot know it in advance so much. It is a post facto determination. See how it worked out, and if it had brought positive consequences, it was the voice of God, or it was non-rational rather than irrational. But the clue he drops is that there is one way in which you can maximize the chances that what you will hear will be the voice of God, was his way of putting it, his idiom. And in our secular idiom, we could say that would be maximize our chances of not confusing the non-rational with the irrational, or the two. And that, he said, was by leading a morally pure life. Now, the ingredients of Gandhi's morally pure life are very similar to the 5 precepts in Buddhism. To the yamas in the yoga, to the vows taken in Jainism, which enables us to see these traditions and this arrangement in these traditions in a new light. That now that you are entering the path of spiritual life, where probably the risk of confusing the non-rational and the irrational could be maximum, you have to start with this built-in check. Which maximizes the probability of your having non-rational experiences rather than irrational ones. So you can see, the deeper level we go, it becomes quite profound and shows us, in a sense, the tradition of the wisdom of the tradition, which have always had a tradition of wisdom.